Malachi Mott, welcome to My Corona.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. How are you holding up?
I'm actually not doing bad. I just taking it one day at a time and planning to be here for a while. So my goal is that when I get out of here, I'll be at in a different place. So
A good place?
yes, a good place. Like I'm setting myself up for success. So I'm looking at this as an opportunity for me to slow down and do all the things that are on my giant whiteboard on the wall that you can't see. But I have all these projects that I just don't have time to do. So now I have time. So just
That's
taking care of
excellent.
them. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your background and what do you do?
All right. I'm a music producer. I do work for hire over the internet, which is awesome because that work is actually ramped up a little bit. I teach music production at a school called Icon Collective. Mostly, I mentor the students to help them get to the finish line, finishing their projects as easily as they can. Um, I'm also a creativity coach, so I can do that pretty much any artistic endeavor that you have. I can help you figure out how to reliably finish your projects and get the results that you're looking to get.
All right.
Yeah, so that's me in a
And how
nutshell.
much before all this virus stuff started, how much were you doing online versus doing in person?
I did everything online. I was at the school 100% in person, and then the online program kind of started blowing up. So they asked us who wanted to migrate, and I saw it as a cool opportunity, which is awesome. I've been doing it online maybe 2.5, 3 years now. So before the Corona stuff, I was living from my room. I have three income streams, and all of them I make from my room. So I was looking forward to getting out of my room, and then all of this stuff happened. So I'm stuck in here again. I'm one of the fortunate people that already had it set up. So like nothing really, I didn't really skip a beat. But what my goal is that by the time this lifts up and everything changes, I'll have a new career, something different.
So, what the impetus for doing this podcast is I want to help people uh, cope with it one way or another. Whether it's what do you do, you know, we've had people on that are explaining what's going on. People who have got charities trying to figure out, what how to help other people. And what had me think of you was how online your business is and
Mm.
how you coach people anyway around creativity. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about for people who maybe it's not obvious to them how they could move their business online and be able to make a little bit of money. Um, help them do that. The other piece of it is that when you and I talked, you were like, oh, this is my opportunity to get all these projects done. So help people think through what is it they've always wanted to do and never done that
Mm.
now's their chance. So any
Uh-huh.
of those topics sound like a good place to start for you?
Well, I want to start by acknowledging you for this is a great idea. I'm super. This is stoked. I'm stoked to be on this, and I think first place I could probably start is having a business online is the for me it's been rocky getting it going, but I think the less you try to treat it like it's a business online and the more you treat it like it's any other business, the easier it'll be. Meaning when you're doing stuff from home, there's no morning routine, there's no commute to work, there's like everything just is different. You like roll out of bed and you're like, oh, I'm gonna watch some Netflix now, and I would say the more you can treat it as if you have a boss looking over your shoulder, the better you'll be.
So how do
you
you
know
do that?
so what I've been doing is I do have a morning routine because it wasn't working at first. So I get up, I meditate, I do all the things that I would love to do if I had an actual job that I was going to. And then one thing that I was gonna incorporate before all this came down is I was gonna drive somewhere and then drive back. So it was like I was driving to work. Um, I walk the dog, so I have like a little bit of a thing to get me moving. And once I'm moving, I exercise a little. Then I go, all right, from this time to this time every day is my work time. I turn off my phone, I flip it over, I make sure I have this thing that blocks my Netflix and blocks my Facebook, so I can't go on any of those. And then in those hours,
You
I
have a
don't get.
mean boss.
I know, right? Well, the thing is, someone hit me up or someone said to me, "The day you work harder for yourself is the day you'll be free." And that really hit me because like I would go out of my way for other people if they were my boss, but for me it's like it's just me, it's not that big a deal. And then once I got that, I was like, okay, like I'm building my company and my future, why am I not taking it as serious as this other company that I'm working for that's paying me minimum wage?
Right.
Right, so once I got there, then I was like, cool. And also, like, you got to make it about the customers, not about yourself. Like I have customers that I love my customers. So what I do specifically, just to give it some context, is people that put their music out and then maybe it doesn't do the numbers that they want it to do, or just doesn't feel the way that they imagine it would feel. They hire me to remix it, and I take it apart, put it back together, and make it sound more like today, so that they can actually get the results that they want to get. Maybe reach a younger audience or something like that.
So slow down for olds like me. When you say make it more like today, what do you mean specifically?
Well, one interesting thing about music is by the time you get to the place where you can fund it and have the resources to do the whole song, you're probably in your 30s. And there's like a finger to the pulse that you kind of need to make something that actually when people hear it just lights them up. And that's the hardest part. Like the pushing of the buttons, that stuff's easy, but like like you see, are you on TikTok?
No.
See? So like whatever the kids are doing on TikTok, that's the cool stuff.
Right.
And I'm 35, so I'm looking at them like,
You're pretty old
how's
too,
this
right?
dance? Yeah, I'm like, how's this dance go? So because I teach younger people, my students are between like 20 and 26. Um, I get to learn from them what's cool, what's popular, what genres of music are working, which instruments are the instruments that are being used on the radio and stuff like that. So by listening to younger and younger music and going out and participating in those new genres, I can then incorporate those new genres into the music that I'm working on.
So is that
Um,
something you think you can teach, having your finger on the pulse?
I think, well, what I just said to you just now, most people wouldn't even thought of that. So even just opening your eyes up to the idea that you do need to keep your ear to the ground, your finger on the pulse, I think that does a lot for people.
When
Um,
when when I worked for in the recording industry, I wound up talking to a lot of very successful A&R people,
mhm.
and that was always an open question for me, which is I don't know, like I'm not that I ever talked to him, but have you heard of Clive Davis, who started
Yeah.
Arista, right? And if you saw the man, you'd be like, this, God knows when I saw him was already 30 years ago. But he was getting on there in years, and how he was able to keep his finger on the pulse of what sounded good then, which was not necessarily what he thought sounded good when he was younger. And watching really talented, like Jimmy Iovine, I'm sure you've heard of him as well, right?
Yes, he was my boss for a while.
Okay, well, there you go. So uh, it takes a certain kind. Well, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe your idea is it doesn't. But I always thought, there's a certain thing you're born with, the ability to put your finger on the pulse of what's going on today. But is your hypothesis that you can teach
That's just
that?
work. It's just work. I remember there was an episode. You ever watch Scrubs, the doctor show? So there was an episode that recreated me so much where the Kelso, I think the old guy is that runs the hospital, his best friend comes to work with him and he ends up having to fire him because he was doing old procedures that no longer are safe.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know any of the new techniques and the new equipment. And Kelso is an older man. He says, listen, man, I read 2 or 3 journals a month to try to keep up and try to make sure that everything I'm doing has the highest percentage of working, et cetera. And I was like, oh my God, that's literally what my job is. My job is making sure that I am up to date as much as possible. I've got to update my microphone, like for instance, let's see if I can show you this. I've got this thing on my microphone. call it Chaotica Eyeball. And this thing makes it so that I don't need a booth anymore. And this is relatively new. I think maybe like 3-4 years this thing has been out. And
Really?
yeah, older,
Because I have baffles that help with the sound, but they don't
it's
work
like
as
40%, right? It
yeah,
doesn't, it
at
improves
best.
it.
And it,
This, if I like on it, it's like I'm in a booth.
really?
So yeah, and the
How much
only
is
reason,
that?
200, they
Oh,
ship
wow,
it
okay.
straight to your house. And I'm not
Oh,
advertising for them, but I feel
no.
like, if you're stuck at home right now, this is the perfect thing.
Yeah, well, they
Um,
should sponsor the podcast.
I mean, hey, if
There
you
you
know
go.
how to make that happen, let me know. Because
As soon as that, from your lips to God's ears. But
well, I'm a
um,
fan, and I think that they solved a huge problem that I've been trying to solve my whole career. But then when I go to studios where there's older guys, they'll still be spending like thousands of dollars on treating the whole room just to record one vocal, and
oh,
it's
for
just like,
sure.
yeah, and it's just like that's not necessary. Or they'll have a board like the one behind you,
Yes.
and we don't use it. We just plug straight to the computer now.
No, I mean, it's kind of an inside joke. So as I said, I like to pick backgrounds for Zoom for the guests that I've got on.
I like
And
it, and
it
that's
just
mine.
that's yours. Took me a while to
Nice,
find the right one.
nice.
And it was the ironic because I particularly knew you wouldn't work with something as arcane as a board, although I have a
Well,
lot
what's
of friends.
crazy is that is an SSL, and I want to say it looks like one that was actually in the room. I wish I could see more of the room.
Yeah, it's a stock photo. So
Yeah, but
um,
yeah, I think I might know the actual board that I'm looking at.
well, I got buddies that that know this stuff inside out, that studied music and produced and what have you. So they would laugh if and when they hear this, they will laugh. But I mean, it's funny. Like when I first started at Capitol Records, I was doing a system for their studio to help them catalog some of their repertoire and their sessions and what have you. So I sat. The gentleman who was in charge of the studio at the time was Michael Frondelli, and he spent a good day with me. He just walked me through all the boards. He showed me the different studios they had. Hey, this is where Sinatra, Nat King Cole. He talked about, I did get to visit some of the studios over in England. Here's what the Beatles were doing. And you look at like, this board behind me is the least of it. Imagine like, just miles of it. Oh, that's exaggerating, but like a huge
No,
room
it's
with
huge. Yeah,
record, right? And the soundproof booths, and it was at the bottom, it was on the basement, and they had all this soundproofing, and you got a little $200 thingamajig next to you that can do the same thing. It's pretty amazing what we've got now.
yeah. You can literally just buy a laptop and then get like a cheap program and get not the same. Obviously, it's not the same sound, but
Sure.
what's interesting is that board behind you is, I believe they're made in the '80s, right? So imagine any industry, pick whatever industry you want, maybe just phones, all right? Let's say you were using a cell phone or a phone from the '80s,
Right.
like you'd be laughed out of the room every time you went to go use it, right? In fact, it would just be like inferior in so many ways.
Well,
But
incompatible at this point. Yeah.
yeah, right, it wouldn't even be compatible, and that's
Right.
kind of what's happening with music stuff, is we kind of got stuck in the '80s.
Yeah.
So now there's three, two different schools. There's the old school, just using everything old school still. Then you got the new school using whatever works. And then you've got the middle where they kind of fuse the two together. So I've been in a lot of studios where they fuse them together. My studio is just a laptop, microphone.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's all you really need to.
yeah. And well,
Right.
being mobile is more important now than having the setup. Because when I'm working with someone, they usually want me to come to their studio. So I'd have all the stuff in my studio for no reason.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you can't imagine what it's like. I used to be a VP for record labels, writing. My department would write computer systems for their labels,
Oh, nice.
and there's a whole there was a whole function which was just tracking what it would cost to record something, and a huge part of if you got a record contract, a huge part of what they gave you money for was to record the album, and that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Now, some of it was,
It's not that no more.
yeah, no, I mean, at this point, you don't need to do that, and it's changed the whole
They give them
industry,
like 20 grand maybe tops to record an album at this point.
right?
It's bad. They try to get everything for free.
Well, and the thing of it is, like, if you buy all that equipment, whatever it costs you, you then have it, and you can record your own stuff, right? So if you've got, like if one of our friends, who's a drummer in, Mayfield, who's a drummer in different bands, he's got a recording, he's got a studio that he rents out some space in Vernon, which if you not familiar with it, it's the warehouse district, and it's where you just play loud music. Nobody's anywhere near you.
Right. So you
And
set it all up.
yep. And so if you throw some equipment in there to record, you've got your own studio. You don't need, and stuff you can buy off of eBay or what have you. But
And it's really not expensive. I think including the computer, you can get a souped up computer. I can give, like, if you came to me, I would tell you what to get. You'd 10 to 12 grand, and you'd have like everything you need to make crisp albums.
yeah, I mean,
you won't be recording live drums, but you could get songs that really work.
Most of it, yeah. As you can imagine, I have a number of music industry friends, and like my friend Kristen, she's got her own setup. I should have her on the pod as well. But it's amazing what you can do creatively now. And so I'm thinking that if you can make music, now would be a good time to make music. And hopefully when we come out of our quarantine, we'll have a bunch of great new music that we can listen to.
Yeah, completely new artists that never had time to do it before. Now we're going to be doing it. So hopefully we get to witness a shift in like what's available.
Well, yeah, totally. So I want to go back to you. I think you were onto something really cool, which is part of the reason why a lot of people aren't successful on internet business or home business or their own business is they don't have the discipline to work for themselves the way they work for a boss. And it sounds like you have some things you set up to make yourself successful.
Yeah.
So when you get up, like what time do you get up in the morning?
Well, see, okay. So the hardest thing for me is like, I'm half in the world and half in my own business. So sometimes I do have to wake up early for like a conference call or something. We were doing 8 o'clock calls for the course that I was just in, and that really messed me up. So, cause I typically start work at like 11 or noon, and then I go until about 2 a.m. That's usually my day. So it's shifted back a little compared to most people. But whenever I have to wake up at 8, it really does mess up my daily routine. So I think for me, the best advice I could give is like every quarter, assess what's working and what's not working, and then redo your schedule. Because as you shift and grow your business, your hours of operation are going to shift. Your the things that you have to do, the calls you need to make will change. So I know when I try to keep it the same forever, it just over time just stop working more and more. So I would say that if I had my way, I'd wake up at about 9. I'd get all my morning routine stuff done by 11. And then that way at 12, like I'm in it 100% and I can go as long as I need to. One thing that helps is there's a kitchen not too far away with a fridge with my food in it. And that's dangerous. So I never realized like going to a job that didn't have that, like you'd be hungry, but you just be like, whatever, I'll wait till lunchtime. But now I can stop at any point I want and just walk to the kitchen. So what I started doing is like making a sandwich, leaving it, and then leaving it to the side. So that way, if I'm really that hungry, I don't have to stop working. Like, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to get up. Does that make sense? Like
Totally.
don't get up. If you can stay in your seat, you'll be fine.
Well, there's some tricks that I've learned from when I was working on site. There's
Okay.
one place I was working that was, I like my coffee, I like my tea, and I like my water. I will drink, make sure to drink 5 bottles of this, right? So there you go. So
Refill it.
all right, let's do it. So one of the things I'll do, I'll have a thermos of a coffee. I'm kind of a coffee snob. I make sure that I have the coffee just the way I like it. So I'll make a pot and I'll fill it in one of those Contigo. I've got a tall Contigo container.
Okay.
and then I'll just pour it out. So I rarely have to get up to do the coffee thing. I can stay seated for a couple of hours
Right.
and just give myself a little. And it's always hot. I've got plenty of water, and the kitchen is a little bit too close, but same kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you just want to get that momentum, like if you keep getting up, you break the momentum. And okay, one other thing I can say is I never sit down to work on stuff. I always sit down to finish a task. Like
Okay.
just that shift in my mindset of like, because before, like, especially with music, you can just work on songs forever. You work on it a little today, you work on it a little tomorrow. Now I go, you know what? Today I'm gonna tune the vocals. I'm gonna clean up the spaces in between the vocals. I'm gonna, I'll just list out everything I want to do, and I just do those things. Then when I'm done, I save it, I close it. I'm
Oh,
finished.
that's excellent. So
It was
do you have a, when you look at it, like how many songs are you working on right now?
2.
Okay. Do you know what you have to do? Like, could you write a task list that'll tell you when to be finished?
Um, yes and no. For the most part, I'm going to say yes. When I listen to it, I brainstorm a lot. Like I want to say like 25% of what I do, if I work on a song for 5 hours, or let's say 4 hours, because then the math is easier, 1 hour of that is brainstorming. So it's not very cool to watch. I'll just be sitting there, it's like, but what I'm doing is I'm thinking like, where are the different directions I can take it? What are the resources needed to get it to those places? Which one is the easiest? Which one is going to be the coolest? And I try to balance it out. I don't do the easiest thing, but I also don't do the craziest thing either, because that's going to take way more time. So it's about cost effectiveness. Like I got to make sure that per hour, what I'm charging, I get paid a decent amount.
Okay. But there's something subtle in what you're saying that I'm trying to tease out, because
Oh, okay.
it may be obvious to you, but like if you go back, I think there's something valuable for other people in that. If you go back to where you say, I got to analyze quarterly what's working, what's not working.
Right.
But what I'm kind of envisioning is you have your own quarterly staff meeting, and you're doing. I know you're obviously not doing it this way, but it's almost
I
like,
might do it this way now. Go ahead.
so I'm imagining that you're like, you sit in your kitchen, you put 6 chairs around, and you sit down at the front, and you go, okay, I'm the CEO. I'm bringing this to I'm bringing this meeting to order. We're going to review our creative output. And then you talk to yourself with another hat. You go, okay, tell us what we did. What kind of material did we put out this quarter? And you go and review the stuff you did. Okay, I'm going to talk to our CFO. How are we doing on profitability? Then you switch chairs and you go, okay,
I
well,
might
this
do
is
that. I legit might do that, because I think my biggest issue is I've collapsed all the hats into one. But by separating them, then each one has an accountability, and you want them to kind of argue,
yeah,
and push and pull. Because I can say the creative me he's definitely ran, the kid creative side of me has been running the show, and the finance guy has been very, very upset that he hasn't been able to get in charge for a while. You know,
is the kid going over budget?
yes, all the time, always
Constantly late? You
yes.
sound like your own record company. You're like, you got a little record label right there.
Well, it's I'm gonna blame it on something, only because um I think a lot of people coming up the way I did run into the same issue. I went to a school that taught me how to make music, but did not teach me how to manage a business.
Right.
Right. So I always came from that space. So what I had to do to get good at it, I had to go all the way to the other side and manage a business that had nothing to do with music.
See, I think
Then,
that's an opportunity you have to teach some of the kids that are very creative and are going to be successful. That's
yeah.
something you can really help them through.
Yeah. And that's the thing that everyone resists, is like, you got to go 180 degrees. You really have to do the other side more until you're heavier on that side, and then come back. It's like a yo-yo.
Do
But what
you,
happened? Huh?
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what happens is, if this is the range, right? Creative, business, what people do is they take one step, one step, one step, one step. Or you really got to go all the way and then keep going till you find that balance.
So, you know how much I love hockey, right?
Yeah.
So there's this one woman in the hockey video sphere, and she does these videos where she talks about, like right now she's talking about how they stopped the NHL, nobody's playing any games, and she's like, how are fans feeling about it? And she has different uniforms for every single team,
Huh.
right? So she makes this video, then she's in the LA Kings and she talks as if she's a Kings fan. Then she puts the Montreal Canadiens on, then she puts the Philadelphia Flyers, she puts on Nashville. And the whole thing is, her latest video is how everyone's reacting to the pause in the season. And it's hilarious. She changes her hair a little bit. She sits at the kitchen. She sits at the whatever. And it's like she's play acting all these different fan bases. But I kind of imagine you're having your board meeting, like you put your suit, you straighten out your hair, you part it just so, like this is the CEO. And then, you go all wild wearing your sunglasses and a loud shirt when you're the creative director. And then you're the CFO, and you're putting on your glasses and you're going, we're very over budget, we're unhappy with it. And then you're your marketing person, and it's like almost, I know it sounds absurd on one level,
No, but it's necessary.
right?
You really
like,
do have to switch the hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like one of the things I do for myself, since I started the podcast, it's really been a week. I don't think I'm supposed to tell people that, because they should act like this is timeless, but I'm not doing that. I'm just being real. So since I started this, I'm like, how do I manage this? Who do I talk to? How do I want it to go? And so one of the things that I'm doing is I have an appointment with myself every morning that's called Win the Day. How do I win the day?
Okay.
And the first thing I do when I sit down, and I've got my morning rituals, which I do. And so I'll do my meditation and whatever. But one of the things I've added is win the day. And then I look and I say, what 3 things do I have to accomplish today in order to say I've won the day? It's like a little game I play with myself. And then what I do in that morning is, did I win my day yesterday? Did I do those things or didn't I? And often it's no. But that's already a progress, because I'm actually looking at, what did I say I'm going to do? Like a couple of days ago, I had an incredibly productive day, accomplished a lot, really proud of myself, really happy. Next day I looked, did I win the day? No, I didn't. Why? Because I didn't do what I said I would do. I did what was more urgent. Right. So I had a very productive day. And in one sense, you could say I won the day, but I didn't do like it's the CFO versus the creative director, right? My creative director had a great day, and he told the CFO and the operations guy, screw you guys, we're doing this today, which might have been a good decision. But meanwhile, so like if you look at my YouTube channel right now, it's got the videos I've done, but the art looks horrible, right? And I just, normally, I'm someone who's you've heard the expression, the perfect is the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
So I always try and be perfect. And, with this thing, I'm like, you know what? I'm having conversations with people I think can make a difference. I'm going to make conversations that sound interesting to me and that people are going to enjoy. And then I'll work out having the YouTube channel look professional, having the Apple podcast thing be professional. At some point, I've got all this software to make the sound go better. I've got all this other stuff to do. But, I'd be putting out one podcast a week that's really high quality instead of, 3 or 4 or 5, and have better conversations. So I'm trying that.
Well, I like
right?
that.
Yeah.
And if you need, we can chat later. See if I can help you with the visuals.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm just using this as an example of.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So, like, what are trying to launch this channel? What are my imperatives? What's really important? And my creative director says getting content on the channel is the number one thing.
Number one, you got to put something out.
Getting better at talking to people. Like in other venues, I'm pretty good at having conversations, but I don't necessarily know how to do it in a way that works in this format. So I'm kind of learning. Like that's why I'm playing with the different backgrounds and different pieces. Right.
I like what you're doing so far. This is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the momentum again, like when I started, so I work on soundbetter.com. That's a platform that I get my work through.
Yep.
And when I found it, I said, all right, this is an opportunity, but the only way it's going to work is if I am consistent and I build the momentum. So I said, I'm going to work on it 6 months as if it's working. And I don't care what it looks like. I'm not quitting for 6 months. So the first month I made $0. And if I didn't make that pact, I probably would have quit. I'm like, nope, I made a pact, 6 months. I got to get momentum. So every day I'd hit the job board up and check out what's going on. And, second month, $0. So, okay, I got 4 more months left. Third month, I made a little bit of money. Fourth month, I made a little bit more. Fifth, by the sixth month, it made sense for me to keep it. Right.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, so I think if you're going to work from home or build a project like you're building, you want to set yourself up with a long term and then a short term, and then create a daily and a weekly habit, simple habit that you can do and not miss it so that you get the momentum.
That's excellent.
Yeah, that would be keep everything simple too. Don't if your project requires you to work hard, you are not going to complete it, because when
Say
it
more
gets
about that. So what does that mean?
so so you wanna all right. I read a book, I forget what book it was, but it talked about there's two yous. There's a you right now who's making all these plans and you're committed to them. And then there's a you in the future. The you in the future is a you know what. He doesn't care about the plans that you made today. He's going to care about eating how he wants to eat, hanging out with who he wants to hang out with, having fun. So you need to set it up so that it's pretty much sabotaging him so he can't sabotage you. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So if you make it like the plan the you now can handle, then the you in the future is not going to be able to handle it.
Okay. So how
So
so how do you do that for yourself?
all right, so I started learning slow and steady wins the race. I try to sit down and do like make this long to-do list and try to get everything done. Now I'm like, I just got to do 2 things today that I don't want to do. That's it. So I go, all right, look, I needed to send out these batch of emails. Cool, that'll take me an hour. All right, I'm gonna do that. Then I also need to, I don't know, work on this song that I don't really like. I'm gonna finish that song. That's the only 2 things I have to do. Once I do those 2 things, then anything else I want to do, I can do. I can watch Netflix. I can.
Really?
There's a song I want. Yes,
That's
and what?
awesome.
So I'm at. But do the math. Let's say I work 25 days a month, right? And I'm doing 2 things I don't want to do a day. That's what was that? 50
50?
things that I get done every month, right? So I just did that math and I was like, that's so much better than burning myself out every day trying to do all these things I don't want to do. And then I also have things that I want to do that are productive, like making songs for myself that I then put out that advertise what I do. So those things are things that they don't go on the list of things I don't want to do because I want to do them, but
Okay.
I
So
don't get to do, huh?
okay, so to tease out what you're saying, you're managing your mind by, let's be honest with ourselves. The
Right,
stuff you want to do, you're going to do anyway. You don't
right,
need to manage that. That's going to happen, right?
right.
Like,
I'm only focused on the things that I wouldn't get done if I did not put a system in place.
so eat an ice cream sundae doesn't go on your to-do list,
No, it does not.
right?
It does not.
Right. But warehouse, but I don't know, depending on who it is, cleaning up your desk might go on there, right?
Right, doing the
Or,
laundry.
yeah.
And I try to make it things that like I can't multitask because doing the laundry is something that I don't want to do. But to be honest, it doesn't take a lot of time because I can do it while I'm doing other stuff.
Right.
But something like, oh man, I'm trying to think of like, if there's a song that it just really does not sound good, and I really don't want to work on it for my client, which happens. I love my clients, and some of them do give me
Not one of your
challenges.
current clients. It's one of the ones you had in the past. But all your
Okay.
current clients are really good, right?
No, but you know what? Like even the ones that give me ones that don't like, I like those more because you get to see the difference is so much greater. Like I had one song, I'm not gonna say the title, but when I gave it to him, he said he did not think it was possible for that song to sound sexy, and I proved him wrong. And I was like, I'm not gonna lie, this is the biggest challenge I've had so far. And I was like, thank you, because I needed that because that's what makes me grow.
Those are the
But
reps, right?
yeah, literally those are the reps. Like between teaching and doing work for hire, I am sharpening myself to be the strongest music producer I possibly can be.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm starting to really understand what you do. So I could just be I'm slow on the uptake
No,
too.
no, I don't really share with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't, because when you say a music producer, people already kind of fill in all the gaps. So I stopped trying to prove or to explain it. I wait for opportunities like this where it makes sense.
No, totally. I mean, and I've talked to enough music producers, and there's that encompasses a whole wide variety of things, and it kind of depends. There are those that that already have a particular sound, and it's a matter of, you know, whoever the artist is, they're going into cookie cutterize their sound. And you want something produced like that. That's one type of producer. Another's like really good technically, and they will take what you've got and they produce it in a certain way. And then there's others which is more like you are, which is you help shepherd a creative project from one side out the other side, which is kind of more what I'm
Like a
saying. Maybe I'm
creative
filling in.
director. No, that's it. You got it, 100%. That's who I am right now. That's not who I've always been, and that's not who I'm going to be 3 years from now. But I think I had one client. Yeah, just one client. He was in Canada. He was a country singer, and he said he made full-time living touring around the country and performing live. But when he would record it and put it out, it would always fall flat. No one would download it. His streams were really low. And he said, I could see that it's just not exciting because I'm not there. So I said, all right, let me see. So I was like, I'll take this country song and do like Avicii did and put the four on the floor and make it really danceable. And I gave it back to him and he was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then it just hit me. This is a need. There's so many people who perform live or are talented, but they don't have the ability to put the energy in a recording and mix it so that it really hits like today's music.
Yeah.
So that's all I focus on now.
Yeah. Well, as I'm sure you know, there's just a different energy live. And so it's a different thing to be able to make something pop without the people.
Well, it's two different products. I feel like one of them is you. It's almost like public speaking, where you're being with the people. That's your job.
Yep.
And the other one is you're. It's kind of like an illusion. You're creating this illusion that you're in the room. So you have to be really good at manipulating the sound so that people feel like you're actually in the room with them. And it's two different skills that I've had to learn. I'm much better at making the recorded stuff than I am doing live. Because I'm really meticulous. You can't be that meticulous live because you don't have time.
You have to be present.
Yeah, and even if you're engineering it, like someone's microphone falls and there's no mic, guess what? Now you got to turn up another mic. That's it. You just got to make it happen. Whereas with recording, like you can say, hey, stop a second, put the mic back. I like to, I don't know. I don't want to say perfectionist because you said something about perfection earlier, and I have a very interesting relationship to perfection to where I don't run into the perfectionist syndrome anymore.
Sure.
So I have it, and that's what I teach my students, that we have collapsed flawless and perfect, right? Right. But something can have flaws and be perfect. Like I'm sure if you zoomed in on the Mona Lisa, you'll find brushstrokes or something that are off that he could have fixed. So at the end of the day, all you need to worry about is what is the task that I'm doing this for? And am I clearing that bar or not? And once you establish what the bar is, then you can test it to see if it's getting over it. Then you can do whatever you want to the art. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, this whole topic is so dense because you bring up the Mona Lisa. Have you ever seen it in person?
I have not.
That is, how into art are you?
I mean, that's all I do. You mean like
I'm saying
painting?
the visual arts. Yeah,
I
yeah.
almost went to school. I was almost a visual artist. Yes.
Okay, so like I studied the Mona Lisa. I'm how should I put it? When I went to college, I really enjoyed my art classes. I was an economics major. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert or what have you. But as I was an executive for many years and traveled, the thing I would do if I was stuck in London or stuck in Amsterdam for a weekend is I'd go and visit all the museums, and I love art. And if you study the Mona Lisa, that why it's such a groundbreaking painting, but it's like, I don't know what's the big deal. You see it in person, or at least back when you could. Now they've got it encased in glass and what have you. It's not the same experience. But if you actually see the painting, it's spectacular. And the reproductions you see just don't do it justice. It's kind
That's
of
kind
like
of cool.
say about live versus
Right.
recording, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point because I've only seen it reproduced, so I'm like, what's the big deal?
Right.
But
The brush are amazing, and the effect, it's kind of like so have you ever gone to a concert where you just enjoyed the hell out of the concert, and your favorite song was the most amazing, and they happened to make an album of the concert you were at, and then you listen to it, and it reminds you of what it was like being there, but that listening to it is just not the same experience.
Yeah, it's like looking at a picture of you laughing.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember there was something funny happening, but I don't really sense the funny anymore.
That's the
It's like,
reproduction of the Mona Lisa. That's the,
okay.
it doesn't, it just, and I'm not technical enough to explain why.
I
And
don't think
so,
there is a technical. I think the coolest thing about art and the most elusive thing about it is that you can never explain it.
yeah,
The more you try, the more you lead people astray.
yeah. And
So,
there's other artists that are like that. And we don't need to go into a whole digression about it, but the other piece of it is, if you look at crystals, and particularly quartz crystals, photographs just never do them justice because of the way they bounce light. It almost, it defies capturing properly. I've never seen a photograph capture crystal the way you can see it in person.
the moon is like that.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, man, you can never take a picture of the moon and have it look like, you look at the moon and you look at your picture and you're like, how is it so different?
Yeah,
Um, so I think with art, it's trial and error. Trial and error has to be your number one tool. Anytime you think there's a right way or a wrong way, you're definitely gonna be led astray. You have to just try it, test it out, try it, test it out. I always use the analogy of, like, if you were making toys for toddlers, right? You're not a toddler, so how do you know if it's going to work or not? You have to do some kind of focus group where you bring toddlers in, put a bunch of toys in front of them, and see which toys actually excite them and they want to play with. Then that's the one you invest your money in. You have to do the same thing with your art. You have to make a bunch of art and then figure out how to test it out to see which ones actually get the results you're looking for. And a lot of artists don't want to do that because it's too businessy. But the truth is, if you don't do that, you leave yourself open to get that pit in your stomach where you just feel like you're not good enough because everything you're trying is failing. And that's the worst thing ever, as a starving artist. I am never going to be that person again. I was that person for so long where I was just like, once I'm good enough, then people will appreciate my art. And eventually I got, there's no one waiting for me to get good enough. It's just like, there's jobs out there. I just got to do the job. And then once I do the job, I'll get the money and I'll move forward to the next job. And that's all it is. There's nothing else.
interesting.
Yeah.
So again, getting back to what you do that makes you successful. So you do the two things a day that you don't want to do. What else do you do in your day?
I make sure I leave a lot of time to connect with people who are not in the music industry.
Okay.
Because I had this epiphany that all the people that I was surrounded with they were my competition. They were trying to get jobs. They weren't going to hire me. So, like, all the people that I have now, I have people in all these different industries, and some of them need music, or they have a partner who needs music, or they know someone, so I can get referrals. So I would definitely say bulk of my time is connecting with people outside. That's how I met you, connecting with Deb. She's not in the music industry, but she's one person that's a good resource where every time I'm with her, I meet more people who could potentially utilize my services.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, again, thinking of the audience that is now grappling with how do I do stuff from home and how do I adapt? What are some of the epiphanies that you had that you could bring creativity online in a way you didn't originally think?
Epiphanies that I've had to bring it online.
Yeah, like when I listened to your story, when we first started talking, it was cool the way you see helping other people with their creativity is different than other people. And what did you see that you could do that online versus like traditionally the stuff you do? I would think you're sitting next to somebody in a coffee shop or you've got guitars
Man, it's
together and you're
so much easier to do it in person.
yeah,
When I started doing it online, I flopped for a while. I flopped when I tried to just do it in person too. But it's, again, trial and error. I think, again, like, coming up with a quarterly meeting where you're like, what works, what doesn't work.
yeah,
That's definitely, and because I teach through a school, we actually have a quarterly meeting where we talk about what's working, what's not working. I keep track of all my students, their progress, what they're doing. I listen to their songs before and after. But I think I don't know, I'm trying to think the best, I don't know, I can't give you one nugget. If I could, I would say find something that if you could do it for free, it would totally be fine. You know, like you'd be 100%, you'd do it all day and that would be your thing. And then charge for that. That would be, because like I love I could talk about music all day and not get tired of it. That's the only reason why I'm good at it. Is it's not because I'm talented. Because if you could hear the music I made when I first started, I was not good. For a while, I was not good. But I didn't care. I just loved making it. I loved hanging out with people who made it and talking about it. When I worked at Interscope, I was getting people food for a long time, but I was just happy to be in the studio with them, you know? That's the kind of thing you want to go into. So find what that thing is for you, and that'll be the thing that you could do from home. I don't really see a lot of people doing this from home because the amount of things that I have to do that initially I didn't want to do, like for instance, tuning vocals. I don't know. Do you know what that means, to tune a
I
vocal?
do, but let's assume our audience
All
doesn't.
right. So tuning a vocal. So if someone's singing and you have auto tune, you can either just put it on like T-Pain to where it just sounds like a robot, or you can actually go in and technically kind of nudge the notes up and down. And if you do it right, no one will notice that you did it. So there was a job in that. When I was working at Interscope, I worked with a guy who was making a significant amount of money per day to just do that. And I didn't know that how much he was making. And he said one day, I'm just sitting behind him and he was like, hey, you want to learn how to do this? And I was like, no, I'm not interested in that at all. And then he told me how much he made. I went, all right, hold on. Let me get my pad and my pen, and I would definitely say for the first 6 months, I hated it. It was painful listening to the same line over and over again and trying to nudge these bad notes into the right notes. And now it's something that I do for meditation because I've gotten to a place that I don't feel anything. It's just Zen. But it took 6 months of doing it hardcore before I got there. So I would definitely say whatever you're doing, you have to go through all the pains of each section of it. So when I make a song, there's probably, I'm gonna say 15 different jobs that I have to do, 15 different jobs that different people used to do. And I had to be that person at some point and make a living doing it at that job. And then eventually one person had to do all the jobs. So that's kind of where I'm at now. But I'm saying all that to say that each time I took a new one on, I was a little resentful because I didn't want to do it, and confronted because they're not easy. But once you kind of dive in and you're doing it and you get the momentum, you start to actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you take on. If you do it long enough, you'll enjoy it.
Well, I think, what's valuable for me about listening to your journey is like the lessons I'm taking away is when you first look at it, you think like, again, when we first talked and you were telling me what you did, I envisioned you sitting in a living room with somebody. They've got a guitar, you got a guitar, they've got a piano, you've got a piano, or you're sitting next to each other on a piano bench and you're coaching them. And when you told me how much online work you do, it made me think for myself. So you may have heard, like, I started giving courses in negotiation skills, and that they're really well received in person. People are really excited, and I know the thing about how to do that in person. I've got the whole vibe. I can see where the students are, see what they're getting, what they're not getting, and like I always feel like that's my forte.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're locked down for how long? Well, you know, so I'm adapting my courses to do them on Zoom, and I'm working on how do you do that? How do you do this piece? How do you get the interaction? How can you really pay attention to someone? Um, so I'm kind of adapting new skills, and I think a lot of people, like I'm thinking about, we've got. I know people in all these different walks of life. Some of them have businesses that require them, to be out, either working on people's houses, or doing construction or different kinds of things, and they're trying to adapt their work to the new reality of what can you do when you're inside and doing the video conference. And a lot of what you're talking about is what it takes to be successful. It's breaking down what you do and taking a look. Okay, so this piece, I've always thought of it as an in-person piece, but does it really need to be in person? And what is it that the boss is really providing me? Well, in some world, what the boss is providing me is the motivation to do the things I don't want to do.
Right.
So how do I break out the stuff I don't want to do that is critical? The other piece they're providing is the review of, okay, are we is the ship heading in the right direction? Do we need to adjust course? What do we need to change? What do we need to do different? And as I look at my friends who have really good, successful businesses, a lot of what makes them successful can move to online. They just have to do the work of figuring out, like we've got one, I think he's a mutual friend who's got a business that's reliant on concerts and things of that nature. And he organizes events. And right now, needless to say, no one's doing any jazz events. Nobody's doing any concerts. Nobody, they're not going to the movies, right? So how do you do that? But this guy is a genius at a certain kind of project management that requires people to, do all these different logistical things together. And so the business may not look exactly the same, but a lot of those skills are transferable. And part of what I'm trying to do with this podcast is give people food for thought of how they can adapt the skills that they have in order to thrive in this new, in this new reality that we're living. So that's what's interesting to me about your story.
Yeah, and one thing that you made me realize is like I could potentially help a lot of people make the transition, because it wasn't easy. I can definitely say that the biggest lesson I learned is you can't just take it from in person and then do it online. You can't. And it's like you can't even translate it as if if it was one language and then just translate. Like if you took a language and then word for word translated it into English, it wouldn't make sense.
Right.
You kind of have to understand both languages to be able to do it, and then think, okay, how would I say that? Okay, here. It's the same thing with this, is like nothing that I did in person works online. Nothing.
Right.
But who I was being and my integrity and my way of looking at it did. So I went, all right, cool. Now that I'm online, what resources are now available that weren't available before? Oh, I can share my screen and share whatever I want. Oh, I could also, I wonder if I can do that without me being, maybe I can't.
You can. Are you trying to share something on your screen?
No, I wanted to draw on it, but I don't know if I can if I'm not the host.
I'll make you. No, it's no problem.
No, you don't have to make me the host, but one thing I learned is with Zoom, you can draw.
Yeah, well, I can make you a presenter.
Okay, yes. Maybe if you do that, then the bar should have more stuff on it.
There we go.
But this took me probably a year to realize, and
okay, you are now the co-host of the meeting. That's what
co-host. Okay, so I see the record button showed up. Let's see what else. There's normally like oh, you know what? I do have to share. So here, check it. I'm going to share. I think it just shows up when you share. So I'm going to share my Tesla picture.
Okay.
All right. So here's my desktop. Right. Beautiful. So, right. You can draw on it. So one thing that this made available that wasn't available when we were in person is I could look at my students as they worked, and I could literally help them and draw on their screen. But when I was in person, I'm like leaning over them, like, oh, press this button, like that just didn't work.
Yeah. Totally.
So now they're in their own space. They're the commander of their thing. So that's something that I do a lot more now. And I had to discover that was something that now is available. So what I'm saying is, like, as you shift from one to the other, you have to be willing to let go of all the techniques that you had and be willing to discover all the new ones.
That's really good. Let go of the techniques that you had and discover the new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, not to do business consulting here, but I think you've got a whole line of business. You get beyond creative coaching. You could start a line of business of move your business online. I'll help you do that.
You know what? I got a meeting tonight with someone that's helping me with my creative coaching business. Maybe I'll mention it to her.
Yeah.
All right. So boom. Yeah. I think so. Okay. Another thing that I learned is I can do anything, but I can't do everything. So
There you go.
yeah. So I have a whiteboard where I'm writing every project down that I actively brainstorming in. And I have a rule. I don't do any action. I don't take any actions on any projects that I haven't already unfolded, meaning I haven't already set up all the different resources and milestones. So that way I know what it takes. Because what I'll do is I'll just spin my wheels on 10 projects and none of them will get done. So I'd rather do 3 projects and have all 3 of them get done in a quarter than work on 10 and have none of them get done.
That's really good. In technology, um, I would manage sometimes multi-million-dollar projects or sometimes smaller projects, and we had rules around. We couldn't assign a resource until the project was approved, until there was a plan, and until you had the kickoff.
There it
So
is.
for the same kind of reasons, that works on a small scale.
Yeah.
You just add another person to your quarterly meeting. I don't know how they do. I guess
Project manager.
exactly, and go, okay, well, where's our kickoff for this?
Yeah.
I got to tell I got to tell you, CFO, Mr. Creative started working on this project, and he didn't file a project plan with me, and he didn't kick off the project properly. He blew 2 days worth of effort on a project that was a
Yeah.
passion project, right?
That's definitely, well, see, the thing is, like, you want to do passion projects and you want to do them in a way that they pay for themselves and they move you forward in some way,
Totally.
right? And when I got that, it was like night and day difference. Now when I do a passion project, I'm not doing it just to have fun, because it's cool to have hobbies, right? Like I took up knitting not that long ago, which is a very interesting hobby, but
Yeah.
that is not a project. It is not, it's something that I do to relieve stress. It's not something that I'm doing because it's my passion and my purpose in life. Um,
It's a
yeah, and if I wanted to turn it into something more than a hobby, then I would have to then figure out, all right, well, if I'm going to do that, how do I make it pay for itself? Okay, every time I knit something, I put it on Instagram and sell it. You have to come up with something to make it pay for itself, because once you pay for it, then it starts to be something that drains you of energy.
Wow. I learned something new about you. You and Alex Smith are the 2 men I know that are the knitters.
Oh, well, I just started doing it. I took a class with a guy not that long ago, another guy that's doing it. And I don't know, he just invited me over, and it's really, really, like, you just kind of fall into it. It's very meditative once you get it. So
Yeah. Well, when
I got to get some more yarn though, because Amazon was kind of out. I think everyone had the same idea.
Well, yeah, probably. When I was in high school and college, my girlfriends used to knit the yarmulkes religious people wear. That was a
Okay.
so
That's kind of cool.
yeah, it was really
Yeah,
cool.
see, and there's actually a purpose to that. So, like, if you're just knitting things just to knit them, like, oh, I'm making a scarf, and it's like, yeah, but you live in LA. Like, who's gonna use this scarf?
Well,
You know?
you can knit masks.
See, there we go. So as long as you tie it to an actual purpose, then you'll, one, be called to finish it because you have somewhere for it to go, and then two, it'll start to fuel not just you but for someone else. It'll be
Yeah,
something
totally.
that's useful. So those would
Make
be
sure to
the two
put
things
a
I would
little
say.
thing for a filter, an insert for the filter.
What?
Like put a
I
filter,
guess that would be a good idea. I
right?
should tell the guy that taught me. He's doing all sorts of things with his now. He's on a whole nother level.
Well, do you want to have an ugly mask or you want to have something that's creative?
My mask is awesome that I already have. This thing is
That's nice.
fashionable.
Yeah.
I got this before all of this went down. I was running outside and my lungs were on fire. I Googled and it just said, yeah, the pollution here is just so bad that when you take deep breaths, you're just filling your lungs full of all the debris and the smog. So I got this and cleared everything up. So when I run now, I use this.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to on another episode, if you look at it, Yin Ting Chu and I were talking about the virus, and he said one of the things that Taiwan does that makes it so that's helping them flatten the curve is everyone runs around with masks.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah. But here,
And we
I
need to
don't think
start
we have
getting
enough. We don't
no,
have it.
we need to start making enough and having them. So
Yeah, that seems like that would be a business that we could have just like had start up and we could have made millions already.
we
Why
still
are we not
can.
doing that?
We still can. We're gonna after we finish recording, we're gonna talk about.
All right, yeah, we got to make them
fashion.
stylish because people don't want to wear crappy ones.
Exactly. So we just, what we need to talk to Kevin Bass, figure out how to engineer it so that even though they're stylish, what are the points we need? We got a bunch of our friends together, figure it out.
Boom, and that's why I have friends that aren't in the music industry.
There you go. That's awesome.
Well,
I know you got a heart out. So
yes, I got to run. But this was fun. I'm so glad that you thought of me, man.
yeah. So before you go, why don't you tell us if people want what you've got, how's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you could find me Instagram probably, but just my first and last name, Malachi Mott, MalachiMott. And if you go to malachimott.com, it'll bring you to all the different links to everything that I have going on.
So if you got some music you would like to coolify, is that the technical term?
Yeah. So if you go on my page, the first thing here, I'll even share it. I'll show you what it looks like. Coolify. I like that term. I might have to steal that.
It's all yours. It's all yours.
So my brand is empowering artists to create art that the world deserves. So it's me up in the studio looking cool. Yep. And then this first one, just click that and that'll bring you to,
beautiful.
Hopefully it works. Yeah, it brings you to my Sound Better page where you can literally hear examples of my work, see different reviews, got 76 5-star reviews. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And
you need to add the tab that says, if you want to bring your business online, I'll coach you how to do that.
You know what? I'm literally going to talk to my coach today about that.
Awesome.
Not even kidding. Bringing it online. Cause that makes so much sense. I never even thought of that being a need and that I was even good at it until this conversation. So I appreciate you.
There you go. My pleasure. Well, thank you so much for your time, and love to have you back on. Next, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. I'm sure that we'll find something else that.
Yeah, I've got plenty of things we could talk about. Let's go. Yeah. So.
Totally.
All right. Well, have a good evening and stay safe, my friend.
All right. Take care. Bye.